think I'm at least 6 feet away from everybody, so I'm going to take this off. It's good to see you. This is the first time I've been able to be with most of y'all and definitely be at a service in person since the week before we shut down, because I actually had some surgery, so it really is good to be able to see you face to face. We're doing our family meeting at the front end of the service today, so we appreciate your flexibility on that. But I'm going to speak, Brad's going to speak, then Hart's going to speak, and just wanted to start off with just some words of encouragement and share a little bit about our vision for our new home here. But when I was thinking about that, I was just thinking about a passage in Acts chapter 13 where Paul and Barnabas, you know, if you're going to talk about encouragement, I think you have to throw Barnabas in there somewhere. But they were, it was the Sabbath, and they were in Antioch, and they went to the synagogue. And so after the law and the prophets were read, the leaders of the synagogue kind of sent a message over to them, said, hey guys, do y'all have any words of encouragement for the folks today? And so Paul, not being shy, stood up and basically laid out the history of the nation of Israel, starting with their delivery out of Egypt, going through all the high points of encouragement for them, all the way up through the resurrection of Jesus. And the interesting thing about that passage is, along that line of encouraging words that he was given of God's faithfulness, there were trials throughout. It began when they were in slavery. They spent 40 years in the wilderness. There were wars. They had kings. They had kings that were faithful and many who were not faithful to the Lord. There was a division in the kingdom. There was even exile in Babylon for a while. And when Paul was saying these words, they were under Roman rule. And that was even going to get worse for Christians from after this point. So trials are just part of the Christian faith and the Christian walk. And we're going through trials now, obviously. With the coronavirus, we're in unprecedented times in our lifetime. I've heard stories about the Spanish flu and losing my great-grandfather to that years ago, but this is the first time we've had to deal with something like this. And it's difficult. It's difficult for churches. It's difficult for pastors, and because folks, not just here and around our country, but around the world, are disengaged, disconnected from each other, and when you're disconnected, that can lead to discontentment because it's just a difficult time. And so we want to continue to encourage you to find ways to connect. I'm very thankful it's 2020 because I didn't know what Zoom was on March the 12th, but now I've been on more Zoom calls than I can remember. But it's good. We've got the technology to be able to connect with people, even though we want to be face-to-face. So we just encourage you to continue to stay connected and find ways to fight for that community because it's so important. And Midlands, you know that we are not a perfect church. Your elders aren't perfect men. But it's amazing what God has been doing in the short 4.5 years that Midlands has been in existence. So as some words of encouragement, and I had to write them down because there was a bunch of them, and I didn't want to forget, and I'm not including all of them, but I want to hit the high spots. So little old Midlands, just in our 4.5 years, 2 of our former pastors, elders, are currently directors of doctoral programs of study, one at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary and one at Southern. That's pretty amazing that God has been doing that through Midlands. One of our former deacons is a professor at Southern. Another former deacon is preparing to go to North Africa to teach and to witness there. We have former deacons that are now in the far country of the upstate of South Carolina and being able to share that love and extend that love that we have here at Midlands with the folks that they're going to be connecting with there. And then we have our current deacons of operation that are going to be moving to the great white north of Virginia but also be able to share the gospel there and connect with people there. And so God's just been doing some fantastic things through Midlands. We have a former pastoral apprentice and his wife that are serving in Eastern Europe, and they're coming home at the end of this year to go to seminary to continue their education. We have a family that's serving in Central Asia from Midlands. We have a former member who is actually preaching next month, and he will be leaving, if it works out with the virus, he'll be leaving for Scotland in the fall to begin his PhD studies. And that's you'll see him next month preaching here. So, and that's a lot of things that I'm leaving out there. Folks that are in this room that have recently completed their studies, and some of you are here to go to school, to get trained, to go and share the gospel around the world. So you know that our mission statement is reach, build, send. And we've been doing a really good job on the building and the sending, and now it's time to also really focus on the reaching part. So just a little history of the last 12 months. You know, we went from Burris, where First Baptist of West Columbia was very gracious to us, and our monthly bill was really ridiculously low. I mean, it really was. If you know what rental space cost in the Columbia area, we are paying about 4 times what we were to be here, and we're actually getting a pretty good deal here as well. So that's how good they were being to us. And in the process, some of this you know, some of you probably don't, but as we were trying to find a place, and we spent time in the Baptist Convention for a few weeks, and then we were at the R. O'Brien Center, but in the middle of all that and finally landing here, we talked to an event center downtown. We talked to Lexington School Districts 1, 2, 5, and Richland 1. We talked to a lot of different places, but this is where God has placed us. And we look at this room, and we're spaced out, and we're used to being like either in the basement feel of Burris or within the confined mahogany walls of the R. O'Brien building. And so I'm just so thankful for this. And we're here for the foreseeable future. And God's placed us here. And so we know where our home is now. And even though we, as a body, are spread throughout the Midlands, this is where God has placed us as a church and as a meeting place. So we're excited about the opportunities here, the opportunities just within this building to be able to minister to the students at Glen Forest, to the teachers at Glen Forest, to the staff and the leadership at Glen Forest. There are multiple opportunities to connect with them and minister to them. We also have already been talking to another local church, Pineview Baptist, which is, as the crow flies, less than a mile from here. I mean, it's really, really close, and they actually have some current ministries that they do with a mobile home community that's right off of Lee Park Road that's really, really close to here, where they have a ministry for children and students up through the high school age that we have talked to them about possibly getting connected and involved with. They haven't been doing that as much this summer with the virus, but they have a produce ministry where there are produce, you know, the restaurants aren't buying as much local produce, so local farms are actually giving them produce that they can share with that community and the communities around here. So there's opportunities here for sure. And we're setting up a group of folks that are going to be putting together an outreach team, a Midlands outreach team, and just to begin to pray and to really think about ways that we can minister to this community where God has placed us. So if you're interested in that, talk to one of the elders. We'd love to get you connected. These ideas will come from God, but they don't just need to come from the elders. Like, you might have some fantastic ideas about way to connect and the way to minister to not just this community, but the Midlands area and the world as we consider everything. So just wanted to encourage you with that. We are going through a difficult time and an interesting time, but man, God's still working, and God is really doing some neat things in Midlands and through Midlands. So one of the things that we do to stay connected is we text a lot. I think Hart is the world champion of text. I didn't know text could be as long as they are until I met Hart. but they're fantastic. Like, they're all good. But he shared one this week with the elders and the pastoral apprentices, and I wanted to share it with you because it really helps us to understand what our focus should be. And it's a C.S. Lewis quote, but it's not my fault this time. It's Hart's, okay? So here's what it says. It says, "The church exists for nothing else but to draw men into Christ, to make them into little Christ. And if they are not doing that, all the cathedrals, clergy, missions, sermons, even the Bible itself are simply a waste of time. God became man for no other purpose." And he sent that out to us, and then he asked the question, are we doing that? Is Midlands doing that? So we want to encourage you to consider that. Like, how can we be the folks that lead others to Christ? How can we be Christ to the other people in our lives? How can we connect with this community, with this school, with Midlands as a whole, and throughout our state, nation, and the world? And we want to work together to do that, our Midlands family. So back to the encouragement about staying connected and working hard for community. We need to continue to do that because God has pulled us together for a purpose. And we've already seen in our short history how God has taken folks from Midlands and placed them in areas around this country and around this world in order to be sharers of the gospel with a lost world. And so we're excited to see what God's going to do now that we finally have a home that we can be comfortable in. Now I want to turn it over to Brad to share some things about deacons.
Good morning. As you heard, part of what Randy had talked about was that like we've sent a lot of people out, like Amy is heading out, which has affected our deacon roles because a lot of the people that are transitioning in life are deacons at the moment and have had a huge part in serving our church. And we've discussed and we've talked about nominating deacons before, but as Randy said, we were in a lot of transitions, and now we have a home. So over the last couple of weeks, we've been able to have more conversations about the deacons and what that might look like, and looked at some names that people had brought up and mentioned. So like I said earlier, Amy is transitioning to go overseas. So that finance one is one of the ones we needed to find a person to fill. And they're not here this morning, but a man by the name of Will, here we go, McGoldrick, there we go. I think I got it right.
You got it.
Names aren't my strong suit. So he's eager to serve in that way. Amy's been even starting to train him, work with him, and show him some of the processes. Amy's also offered from a distance to stay connected and help us through transitions. So he is, and was it last week we did the members? Yeah, he was one of the ones. 2 weeks ago. He was one of the ones that we've been excited about them being members of the church. And so that's the name for finances that we'd like to bring before you all. Wow, I just said y'all, didn't I? I'm from Pennsylvania, and I don't know if I've ever said that in public yet, so that might be the first time. Just sorry for
You're getting there.
I'm getting there. But another one is operations. As you heard, Randy kind of glanced over the Lewises. They're transitioning out of state. So that's an everyday Sunday kind of role. So we were discussing that, and one thing I've appreciated during these transitions is watching the people that just kind of like serve and are eager to serve. And one of the people have done a lot, or one of the men have done a lot already with operations. So his name's Cam Balzer. So I hope I said that right too. But we'd like to bring his name forward in that position. We do have some other roles to fill, like missionary care. Alicia had left a while ago. We have a team we haven't dropped the ball on that. We've got a team that's still meets and discusses how we can serve our missionaries. And then also missionary care, members care, because the Martins had moved and transitioned to the upstate. We had some names brought up for that, but because of COVID and other situations, they're kind of considering some variables that are at play. So hopefully we can bring some names, more concrete names forward at a later time. As far as voting, we're still working through those details, like how we're going to manage that, maybe even online as a consideration. So just keep your eyes out for communications, like through our social medias or emails, about what the voting and timeline for that might look like. So, and now I'll pass it back over to Hart, or not back over, but over to Hart.
I have one quick announcement to share with y'all. Amanda was updating me on Kidland's needs, and y'all have been awesome with the cleaning supplies, so we're good there. We've also gotten people to volunteer with teachers, which has been a huge help. So the thing we need now are people to volunteer to be assistants. So one of the ways we try to help encourage safety and protection within the classrooms is having multiple people in the classrooms to provide that accountability and those extra set of eyes. And so the teachers, they help teach the class, but the assistants are more just to be there to assist, kind of help keep the kids under control and that kind of thing. And so you don't need to be comfortable with teaching, because that's not going to be one of your requirements in this role. So if you would be interested and willing to serve in Kidlands and more just to be there to help the teachers, that would be a huge way that you could serve our church right now. And so please let Amanda know about that. The other thing we wanted to share with you guys, we wanted to give y'all just an update on this process of filling the void that was left by Matt. So I wanted to first remind us, that there were 3 key areas that he gave oversight to while he was here. And obviously the one that's most obvious to us was the teaching. But he also gave a lot of attention to counseling and also equipping. So just to clearly state at this point, the Lord has not filled those roles, has not filled that vacancy at this point. But we as a church, we know that we have gone through a lot of transitions throughout our history. And so many of us are weary and tired at this point. And so we recognize that because we feel it too. And so we desire the stability and the consistency that many of you have been communicating to us that you want, because we desire that too. And so we are continuing to pray and ask the Lord to fill that void however he sees fit. And we want to ask that y'all continue praying that prayer with us, and also pray for us. Pray that we would be humble and that we would be dependent on the Lord and truly seeking his leading and what it is that he wants to do and how he wants to fill this role. Up until this point, the practical steps that we've been taking have been more so obviously prayer, but then connecting with the networks that we're already connected to. So the South Carolina State Convention, our local Lexington Baptist Association that we're members of. We are connected to some church planting networks. We are friends and have some pastors here in town who are well connected to the church planting world that have been very kind to us over the years. And so we've been in communication with them. And then obviously we have connections to seminaries, like so locally we got CIU, and then we have, even though we don't like Southern right now because they keep stealing from us, we have people connected to Southern. So we've been in communications with them over the last year. They've been on the lookout for us and keeping an eye out for us, looking for someone that would be interested in coming and getting involved in a church plant and plugging in here. We also want to mention that up to this point, we have not had search committees. We haven't posted job openings online. And one reason for that, honestly, is financially. We haven't had, a base salary in the budget that we could offer towards that. And so we just didn't think it would be wise for us to be pursuing those avenues, because the people that we would be likely targeting in that would be looking for, expecting a full-time salary or at least some sort of base salary for that. So we just didn't think it would be the best use of our time. So with Matt's departure, we've tried to distribute those responsibilities amongst the people we have here, amongst the leadership we have here, and to help shoulder the load. But because I am the highest paid person on staff right now, and because of the flexibility of my schedule, naturally a lot of those responsibilities still tend to fall on me. And so recently, just through a lot of prayer and counsel, I've come to a couple realizations. I think first, I've been really convicted recently that our church needs those roles filled. And we need someone to fill it that has those strengths, has those giftings, has that passion, and has the time and the ability to fill it and to give it the time it needs. The second realization I've realized is I'm not that person. I'm not the person to fill those roles. And so if this is truly what our church needs, then we need to free up the funds to be able to afford that. And so just after a lot of prayer and conversations, Vanessa and I, we've come to the conclusion with the support of the elders that we are willing for me to reduce my salary if that is what it takes to free up the funds to be able to fill those voids that we have right now. Now, obviously, if we reduce my funds, that's going to mean that I would need to restructure my responsibilities as to what I'm doing here. But honestly, that's been on the forefront, that's been on the horizon for me, because as we've looked ahead to the fall, if you don't know, we are expecting baby number 3. And that's coming in October. And so the last few months, I've started looking ahead to that going, I do a lot at the church, but I know my schedule is going to get really busy with that home, because we're going to be getting adjusted to a new baby. Vanessa, we know, is going to have a C-section, so she's going to be out for basically 2 months recovering from surgery. For those of you who don't know, I'm bivocational, so I actually work a separate job, and Vanessa and I have a business together. And so as she's recovering and being home with the baby, I'm going to be required to give a lot more attention to my other job. We also homeschool our kids, and that's a very demanding thing, but coronavirus has even complicated that even more. And so we've been looking towards the fall going, I need to get stuff off my plate so that I can be there for my family and serve my family in that way. So we've been looking ahead to the fall. We've already been discussing how can we restructure my role. And I think now that as I'm more convicted, realizing our church needs this. This is the season we're in where we need these voids filled, and we need someone who's those are their strengths and their giftings to fill that. We've come to this realization that the best way, what would be best for us is to reduce my roles in some ways, and what would be best for the church is to free up those funds so that the church is actually able to more seriously consider people to fill these roles. So we wanted to share that with you just so you know. I hope that's encouraging to know that the church, the Lord hasn't provided that role yet, but we are trying to take steps and trust that the Lord is going to lead us in that, and we're trying to take more serious steps to make that a possibility. We know that it's been a year since Matt left, and we're weary, we're tired, and so I hope this is encouraging. But I also think it would be unwise of us. I think it would be wrong of us if we ignored how God has provided over the last year, because He has been very gracious. He hasn't provided maybe the ways that we've wanted Him to, but He has provided, and it would be wrong of us to ignore that. And I think one example of that is over this last year, we've had 7 men who have been faithful to get up and to preach the word. And yes, there's differences with our teaching styles and, what we had grown accustomed to with Matt. There's those differences, but the thing that we have been able to be confident is they have faithfully gotten up and preached the word. We haven't had to worry about them preaching blasphemy. And so that's a praise. We should be thanking the Lord for that and praising Him for that. Another way that He has recently provided is through Ethan Young. And so we're excited to share with you guys that Ethan is going to be coming on staff in a part-time role to serve as our equipping director. As I've gotten to know Ethan over the last few months, and as we've had conversations with him, he is very passionate about equipping. It seems that that's one of his giftings, is to do leadership development and to work with people to help identify what are your giftings and your strengths and abilities, and to work with them and say, how can you use that to serve the kingdom, and how can you use that here to serve this church? And so we're really excited to be bringing him on staff. So I'm going to invite Ethan up. He's going to share a few words about that. And while he's coming up, I will let you know it is right now in a part-time role. and we would, I think for them, they're having to weigh through, are we going to be bivocational? How are we going to supplement that income? They are open to raising support. And so I want to encourage you guys that to prayerfully consider how might you be a support to them. And if you're willing and able to be a financial support to them, I'd love for you to reach out to them. So I'll pass it over to Ethan.
Anybody else ready to get rid of these things? We need them right now, but I can't wait until COVID's over. We can put these in our pockets. So I was thinking about what to share this morning with you guys and where to kind of start off. But I think what I want to communicate as a rollout is just Amy and I are really passionate about ministry. And by ministry, I mean serving the body of Christ to help it achieve God's ends of building his kingdom. That's the mission that we've been given, is to go into all the world and preach the gospel to all the nations and make disciples and see the work of building God's kingdom done. That is, from the time I was in high school, I think that's really what has made me tick and what I've been excited about, what I've wanted to invest in. It was a pleasure meeting Amy at Bible college and seeing, hey, here's a young woman who shares that passion, hubba hubba. That was a providential coming together of the two of us. And since that time, that's what we've desired to invest ourselves in. We had the privilege of serving on pastoral staff at a church in Iowa for a number of years before we providentially took a break and entered into seminary training. Not because that was what was best for our pocketbooks, but we just desired that time of training and sharpening, just investing time to see where are some areas that we could continue to grow ourselves, and that God would use other trained individuals to help us in that way. So it's interesting how we landed here at Midlands. We were part of a really great local church during our time in seminary, Crossroads Church. Many of you are familiar with our brothers and sisters over there, and really loved those folks, enjoyed our time there. But as we found out that we were going to be staying in Columbia for a while to serve on Res Life staff at CIU for a while, we really wanted to find a smaller local church where there were ministry needs that we could come in and help assist with. And so we talked and prayed with our elders at Crossroads. And we were close friends with the Hastes, so we mentioned that to them, and I saw Matt's eyes kind of bulge. And he was like, hey, would you like to come and visit at Midlands? So we were like, yeah, I mean, we would love that. And we knew doctrinally huge alignment there with where Midland sits and what we teach here, the love for God's Word. And so after about a month or two of visiting, we just were excited about what we saw at Midlands. And remember, this is at Burris Hall. We remember Burris. Thank you, God, for Burris. It was a place to meet. What we saw there was this family of believers where there were some ministry needs that we felt, here's how God's designed us and equipped us. And there are needs here that we feel like under the auspices of the elders, we could come and help meet. And as we developed relationships and friendships with you guys, we sensed that this is where God would have us invest our gifts and settle down. So anyways, it was interesting because I was working at CIU at the time, and my responsibilities there left little to no margin for local church investment. We were, in terms of like peripheral ministry, we're trying to get involved in some ways. But over the last, especially I would say the last 6 months, as we've prayed, our family has prayed, Lord, where do you want to use us, and how do you want to use us? How do you want us serving you? And where do you want us investing in the work of building your kingdom? We have asked the Lord where that would be, and we've seen doors open here. And as we've continued to assess the needs that are here at Midlands, we feel like there's a very good fit. So for us, on our part, huge step of faith. We've prayed, God, would you help us to minimize our living expenses in some incredible ways. We need to get our cost of living as low as possible. On the other side, Lord, would you provide financially for us so that we can invest as much time as possible in ministry here with our Midlands church family. So we're continuing to pray about what that will look like. As Hart mentioned, we've prayed about actually seeking financial support from family and some close friends and those who are also invested in the work of building God's kingdom. But we're also considering the prospect of what that would need to look like in terms of another job or jobs to supplement that income. So continue to pray with us in that regard. What we're excited about as we look to the months ahead is equipping ministry. I love seeing God's people discovering their gifts and developing their gifts and seeing how God wants to use them here at Midlands and in the church in general, in the body of Christ in general, in building his kingdom. It really, every time I read through the book of Nehemiah, I get excited because I think about Nehemiah surveying the work that needed to be done and kind of creating his, reverse engineering work breakdown structure. Okay, here's what needs to happen. We need somebody at this wall, this wall, this wall. We need some foremen. We need all these tasks. And to think that by God's grace and his provision, within 52 days, they rebuilt the walls of Jerusalem. Absolutely astounding. And I believe that God is prepared to do that same quality of work in and through Midlands, through his Spirit's work in us and through us. I see it happening. Even in this time of transition, I see what God's doing. And it's very, very exciting. It hasn't been convenient. It hasn't been comfortable. But here we are. Like Randy said, we're in a new space. God's provided this new space. We have some obvious ministry opportunities. And as we hopefully get over the hump of COVID and are able to interface person to person with one another, we have opportunities to invest in one another and continue ministry together. So anyways, sorry if I overkilled that a bit, but Amy and I just want you guys to know we are incredibly excited to serve you and to come alongside you and help you discover how God wants to continue to grow you and your family and invest in and through Midlands. So with that, I'll hand it back over.
Thank you. We're very excited to have you coming on board. We're going to open up for questions. I know we're starting to, time-wise, we've gotten a little past where we had hoped to be done by this point. I realized I forgot to say something and wanted to make sure I clearly say this, that my intentions of reducing my salary, I still hope and desire to be on staff here. I still want to serve as an elder here. So this is not, hey guys, I'm peacing out. Like, I still want to be involved here. I think we are feeling this conviction that we're entering into a new season for our church, and we need to be freeing up funds and doing what we're able to do. So I just want to make sure that was clarified, that you're not thinking that. So anyways, we want to open up for questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to, just shout them out. Sure. Yeah, that's a good question.
One thing I totally forgot to say in our praise time was we haven't had our bulletin, so we haven't had the monthly updates, but our expenses through the end of May were roughly $59,000. Our income through the end of May was roughly a little over $76,000. So we are $17K above our expenses. Now, there's a couple things going on there. We've been getting a monthly church plant gift from the association, and that ended in June, right? But it ended because there are other church plants that are just getting started and really need that. But we're thankful that we had it for 4.5 years. But part of the transition with the new deacon of finance and looking at those things is we're looking at all these things to see how we can be able to bring somebody on board. And also, Hart, you didn't share this, so I don't want to speak for you, but part of what we were talking about is through faithful giving, like Hart is so passionate and so gifted in a lot of the things that he does at Midlands. And so there's a season where he needs to kind of step away or step back a little bit, cut back, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to always be like that.
Right.
If we're in a position to go back and then have Hart be focused on the things that God has truly gifted him for and he has a passion for, this hopefully is just going to be a temporary situation. So just wanted to make y'all aware of that as well. It's we need to be faithful in our giving, and you, Midlands, you have been very, very faithful in doing that, and we just need to continue that as well. And we've got that opportunity. We've got space to grow now, and with that comes more opportunity as well. But wanted to make sure that y'all understood that.
Yeah, and I would love to be full-time here and serving in the areas that I'm really gifted at and strength, and that are my strengths. And so we can't do that, but if the Lord grows our church and financially we grow, then that would become a reality eventually. So don't hear, oh, they're going to restructure the salary, so I'm going to check out, I'm not going to give. Like we genuinely need people to continue giving and even be willing to give above and beyond. Going back to Aaron's question, what he asked was, would we need to restructure the budget or anything like that? Short answer is no, because as long as we remain within our budget that everyone's agreed on, we don't have to like re-vote on it or anything. If we were to have to go over it, if we needed to increase numbers, but as long as we're staying within what was voted on. And so we, like in the case of Ethan, I'm sorry, I do that to you so much. In the case of Ethan, we already have a little bit of money set aside that is going to go. It's not very much, and that's why they're having to think through either another job or raising support. But we already had some money set aside for that. And then obviously in this other scenario, we'd be restructuring an existing budget. So yeah, a good question. Cam?
This might be a weird time to ask this, given the current climate and everything going on, but has there been thought and discussion around sabbaticals for any of the elders at any point in the relative near future or anything like that?
It has been mentioned, not by any of the elders, but in conversation with Ethan, he has brought that up and seeing that as a good thing that could be done. So, I mean, we haven't had a ton of discussions about it, but yeah, that's pray that the Lord continues raising up leaders and people that can step in and take things off people's plates, and that we would be able to do that. Any further thoughts? All right. Y'all can never ask a question again, so I'm just kidding. But we do need to keep rolling, so Brad's going to close out this time.
With all this stuff going on, being encouraged is by others around us is just a great blessing. And this always happens to me. Just to let you know why I kind of paused a minute, we want to take this time to just thank the Lewises for what they've done for us. And why I mention the encouraging is just, that's what I think of many things, but when I think of them, even during the season, the texts I get from Taylor were just a great encouragement. Even when they were making decisions and going through things they're going through, the fact that even in the midst of that, when I'm trying to encourage him, it seems like I'm the one being encouraged. This time I actually volunteered for this. What was I thinking? But yeah, we do need to keep this short. But I just want to thank them for everything they've done in the church, and that they will be. They'll be missed. Okay, I'm gonna just end this time of transition prayer. And dear Heavenly Father, I'd like to just thank you for the people you put around us. Thank you for the people of Midlands. As we go into the worship and the sermon, as we look at this passage, pray that we're just reminded the need for you and to abide in you. And I'd like to pray from 2 Corinthians 13:14 that the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all and be with us as a church. In Jesus' name, amen.
If you would stand for our call to worship this morning.